markets are efficient in ensuring every economic outcome. Does it mean we don't need government? Does it mean we don't need any government intervention in simply distributing goods and services? Okay, does it really mean markets the only efficient, okay, or markets are only one better in allocating goods and services? Do you really think that there is no presence of government required when it comes to allocation of goods and services? Do you really think we can leave everything to the markets? Huh? Yes or no? No. Why no? Why no? It's simple. That's what we are discussing. Why should there be a government present? Why should there be a government present here? Okay, and why not leave everything to the markets? Simple. The very first reason why we cannot leave everything to the markets. The first problem is with respect to concentration of market power. The first problem concerns with the concentration of market power. So what do you mean by a concentration of market power? Imagine if a single buyer or single seller happen, if there exists a market where there is only one person or one particular entity who is going to solve the entire market. Get it, my friends? So look at it, a single seller. Okay, so if you want, just imagine, my dear friends, okay, the distribution of drinking water in Hyderabad. Imagine a scenario, the distribution of drinking water has been outsourced. The responsibility of distributing the drinking water has been privatized to a private company, okay, owned by some person. Let's say you happen to be, or this lady happens to be the one who happens to be the sole distributor of drinking water, the one who supplies drinking water to all the households in Hyderabad. If she is the only lady and the government said, okay, you are the only one who would be doing it. Now imagine a situation where this is the only lady who would be having concentration or who has the only potential to distribute drinking water to all the households in the city of Hyderabad. That's what I mean to say, concentration of market power. Pura market is at her command. Isn't it? She happens to be the only seller of this so-called product, what I would call as a drinking water. Okay, and that's what we call, technically speaking, as a monopoly. Single seller. A monopoly. Poly means seller and mono has been single. Okay, so it's a single seller. And if it is duopoly, two. Oligopoly, few. It's not too few. And a market is said to be perfectly competitive, where you cannot discriminate the product and you cannot discriminate the price, isn't it? So that's what is said to be a perfectly competitive market. Perfectly competitive market. So let's say there are market for onions. Isn't it? Can you simply, if I simply give you 2 onions without any sticker on it, can you say, no, this is an onion from Spencer's, this is an onion from Heritage? Yeah. If I give you 2 onions, and can you simply say, hey, look, this is an onion from Maharashtra, this is an onion from Gujarat, this is an onion from Telangana, this is from Adilabad, this is from so-called farmer, this is come from so-called, this is the KCR, KTR farms, and this is Veerabhadra Singh farm. Can you make it out? Okay, no, that's not. You cannot differentiate between the product. Isn't it? And they happen to be the same product, you cannot differentiate it, they obviously get traded at the same price. Such market is a perfectly competitive market. Okay, but there could be a market where only one particular seller would exist and he is the only one who commands the entire market. And such particular market is said to, such particular person is said to concentrate enormous market power. Imagine a situation, if the market is perfectly competitive, there is hardly anything wrong. In fact, that's what is the best for the markets. Because if there are too many sellers of onions, then no single seller of onion has concentrated more market power. No single seller can alter the price of onions. Isn't it? Because if you happen to be the seller, because if market happens to be competitive, who determines the price? If the market is perfectly competitive, how is the price determined? The market determines. Just because you are the onion cultivator, you bring in your onions and simply say in the market, hey, look, my onions are 200 rupees per kilo, then people say, go to hell, I am not going to buy it. I would buy it from somewhere else because the same is the onions. If you say my onion is so good enough because one onion could be used 200 times, then TK, if that has some magic power, TK, I could buy it. But if the same onion what the other party is selling, you doesn't have the right to determine the price. Who determines the price? The forces of demand and supply. Purely the market forces determine. Getting what I'm saying? That's a perfectly competitive market. But in reality, markets are not really perfectly competitive. Okay, TK, onions and rice, TK. But most of the cases, the markets happens to be, okay, called, that market that we really experience, we participate is said to be known as monopolistic competition. What is in reality said to largely exist is monopolistic competition. What is a monopolistic? It's a combination of both monopoly and perfect competition. How could both these things could be combined? Let's take the case of mobile phones. Mobile phones mein there are large number of suppliers. There are large number of, like onion cultivator, there are large number of suppliers of onions. Similarly, in mobile market, there are large number of suppliers, but each supplier happens to be a monopoly in his own category. Getting what I'm saying? Following? So there are abundant suppliers of mobile phones, but Apple is the only one who sells iPhones. Isn't it? So the market for mobile phones is competitive, largely competitive. When it comes to iPhone, it's been a monopoly. Get what I'm saying? Okay. Similarly, your fairness creams. You have Fair and Lovely, Fair Ever, Fair Last is what? XYZ. So the market for facial creams, isn't it? Is competitive because there are too many players. Lakme, Otto, there are too many. I don't remember, recollect it. But there are too many. Isn't it? But each and every one, many of you have a brand loyalty, isn't it? The one who is wiki turmeric should not be, okay, maybe should not be shifting until unless there is enormous change in price difference. Get what I'm saying? So that's how, in terms of their individual segments, they are monopoly. But if you look at the bigger size of the market, they have good competition. So just because iPhone happens to be, Apple happens to be the one who is selling iPhone, it alone cannot rise the price too high. If iPhone people end up saying, or Apple people end up saying, my phone is really going to have better features than compared to it, henceforth my phone costs not $999, okay, it is going to cost $9,999. In such case, iPhone loses the market to Samsung. But within iPhone market, iPhone itself is the monopoly. So when iPhone alone, I mean Apple alone cannot determine the price, isn't it? But when it comes to iPhones, Apple has within that particular limited segment, iPhone, because that happens to be luxury, and more or less most people believe that happens to be a prestige owning an iPhone, and that's the basic reason it can take that advantage. But ideally, Apple alone cannot determine the price because it has to look at it as a competitor, isn't it? So if Samsung is coming with a better alternative, isn't it? Then I lose the market if I end up increasing the price. So in reality, the markets are monopolistic in nature. Get what I'm saying? But imagine a case if you experience a situation of monopoly. Can you give me an example of monopoly? Single seller in this country. Indian Railways. Okay, chhod do RBI. Indian Railways. Is there any called Tata Railways, Birla Railways? No, sirf Indian Railways. Whatever kind of service they offer, we should buy. That's it. That's a perfect monopoly. Isn't it? If there is only one guy who is selling the goods and services, who could be having that particular leverage of simply determining the price? The one who is selling it, isn't it? In such case, because of the enormous concentration of market power, they might be taking it to an advantage and end up selling the goods and services at an exorbitant price, which might hurt the interest of the markets. TK, railways to chhod do. Okay, if the railways keeps on increasing the fare, then I could take a Palle bus, isn't it? But imagine the case if that particular company happens to be not railways, a pharma company. A pharma company which sells a medicine for dengue or swine flu. Isn't it? And imagine this pharma company has a patent upon it. The pharma company has a patent upon it. That means once you've been given a patent, 20 years down the line, you are the only fellow who would be allowed to commercially exploit the underlying patent. So swine flu is a contagious disease. Getting my friends? And there are chances it might turn to become an epidemic because it's a contagious disease. Isn't it? Dengue is the same case. They don't have medicines as of now. And imagine some Ranbaxy fellow or Cipla fellow comes up with a medicine and has been given a patent. And since he is aware of the fact that he is the only one who is going to commercially exploit the market for 20 years, and this lady, since aware of the fact, because medicine could no alternate way. See, you cannot say if there is a one medicine for swine flu, if not your medicine, I am going to. If not for swine flu, I take the headache paracetamol tablet. Because the medicine for swine flu is costly, you cannot go for paracetamol. Isn't it? Because the life is at stake. And now she takes it to an advantage and simply says, I am going to charge you 1,000 rupees per doses. That's completely unethical. Get what I'm saying? Of course, it might have costed you, okay, huge amount of money because coming with the medicine involves large costs and large amount of time. I do understand it costs you too much, but you cannot expect all the profits to be made in a span of 1 or 2 years. That is something you can get it in the next 20 years. But you end up becoming so greedy and you are aware of the fact you happen to be the single seller. and you charge exorbitant price, someone got to tell this is bad. Get what I'm saying? Who is going to tell that this is bad? Neither the consumer nor the producer. Someone outside this producer and consumer has to determine. Okay, and who is that guy who has to just simply say? Okay, not the books of ethics and all these things. Someone who has a right to punish. And who is that fellow who has a right to punish? Government. And that's the basic reason we have a regulatory agencies. And what does these regulators does? Like your fan regulator who controls the speed, similarly the regulators are the one who tries to ensure discipline in the markets. Give me some examples of regulators in India. SEBI, regulators of capital markets, RBI, regulator of banking sector, PFRDA, Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority, TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. Isn't it? You get it, my friends? IRDA, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority. Isn't it? So there are too many regulators, and look at it, almost all regulators are owned by Government of India. Not a single regulator is owned by Mukesh Ambani. Isn't it? Mukesh Ambani cannot be the regulator of his own business. Get you what I'm saying? So that's the basic reason. Okay, so the seventh principle happens to be government sometimes improves outcomes. Not always. Government sometimes improves outcomes. Why is it so? Because markets are not always efficient. Isn't it? Following. So I am going to explain why the government sometimes improves outcomes and why is it necessary for government to be present when it comes to allocation of goods and services. But let me also discuss certain other lacunae when it comes to the function of markets. The very first problem with markets is they do constitute enormous market power. A single seller is called a monopoly. I'm sorry. Okay, and a single buyer is what is said to be called as monopsony. And the same, a single buyer is said to be called as a monopsony. Give me an example of a single buyer in this country. Single buyer. Railways itself. Imagine if you manufacture a rail wagon. If you are a private company manufacturing rail wagon, whom the hell are you going to sell? Devakar Travels. No, you have to sell it to Indian Railways, obviously. Isn't it? You manufacture a coach. Isn't it? Similarly, take the case of power distribution in southern states. When it comes to distribution of power, I mean privatization happens to be take place in this India when it comes to production of power. You can produce power, solar power, thermal power, hydropower, any power project could be constructed by any private individual. But you produce power, you cannot simply allocate or distribute directly to the households. When it comes to southern states, okay, most of the discom company happens to be owned by the state governments. So who is going to distribute power? The Telangana discom, AP discom, I mean the distribution companies, they have to. So obviously, no matter what is the power you produce, you have to place it on the grid owned by these people. That's it. Similarly, defense, 49% that we also have foreign investments. So privatization, defense is also privatized. You can manufacture an AK-47. There is a company in Amedi which is manufacturing AK-47s, Russian company. Okay, you can manufacture it. But whom do you think you are going to sell? You cannot sell it to Maoists. It's illegal. Of course, you can sell it, but it's illegal. Legally, you have to only sell it to the defense people of this country. That's it. You can make explosives, but you cannot sell it to the Maoists. You should only sell it to, okay, get what I'm saying? That's what it is. So that's a monopsony. Okay, single buyer. Monopoly, single seller. Market this might happen. In many instances. Give me an example of a duopoly. Duopoly, two sellers. Or at least oligopoly. Few. Okay, anything, either of this duo or oligopoly. Let's say carbonated drinks in this country. The carbonated drinks, either it's PepsiCo or Coca-Cola. Of course, they have different brands, but it's only two companies. Okay, similarly, take the case of this freshly brewed, what do you say, that particular coffee, instant coffee. You know, it's a Nescafe or it's a brew. That's it. Do you have any other alternative? That's it. You get it, my friends? So where the players happens to be relatively very less. Get it, my friends? Similarly, take the case of an operating system. You get it, my friends? When a desktop operating system, isn't it? It's either Windows or Macintosh. And largely being sold as either Windows or a Macintosh. Isn't it? You get it, my friends? That's it. The duopoly. You get it, my friends? You don't have a perfect competition, and the large part of the segments in the industry doesn't have a perfect competition. Get it what I'm saying? Okay? So that's what it is. Following. And that's the basic reason. Last class I have given a hint. I charge exorbitantly high because the market for civil service faculty, that too economy, is not perfectly competitive. And I really don't mean I charge exorbitantly price. Okay, I just make it interesting, I have simply said, and don't simply reveal it to any other faculty. Isn't it? It's not true. He is very fair and he pays equal amount of money to all faculty. I just to make it interesting. Okay, maybe you would be thinking to become an economic faculty because I said, I revealed, I am getting paid more. So don't have any such kind of plan, isn't it? So do stick to your plans. Following? So that's the very first problem with markets is they might concentrate enormous market power and that might act against the interests of the consumers. Second is the problem related to externalities. The problem related to externalities. What do you mean by an externality? Externality is simply the impact of one man's action on the bystander. Externality refers to a person's action, a one man's action on the bystander. Simply if I do something and that could impact the other party who happens to be the part of the trade. But my particular trade also has an impact on the people surrounding me. That's what is said to be called an externality. The impact of one man's action on the bystander. Following what I'm saying? Okay. So let's say I am producing thermal power. There are two different, I'm just giving an example of two different instances. The first instance A happens to be I have a thermal power company. I own a thermal power company. When I say thermal power company, what is the basic raw material that I use to produce power? Coal. So since I produce power using thermal power, okay, it's a thermal power company. So what do? I produce power, place it on the grid and make money. And mint money, make profits. You people happen to be the beneficiary of consuming this power, you would have a comfortable life. You can simply run your AC machine, refrigerator, you enjoy, you benefit, I benefit. Isn't it? You benefit and I benefit. And in this transaction, you happen to be the party consumer, I happen to be the party producer. But it's not only you and me, the rest of other society also has to pay some price in this transaction. How come? Because my thermal power company would be making some emissions. The carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, which might lead to change in climates, would have an enormous impact, negative impact on climate, isn't it? So that would sometimes lead to acid rains, isn't it? So when there is an acid rain, it's not you and me, okay, even the farmer in the rural part of India who never happens to have an access to power, who also gets affected. If there is an impact on climate change, if there is a pollution in the environment, who is going to pay the price for it? Not only the buyer and the seller of the power. Every damn Indian citizen has to pay for it, isn't it? That poor farmer who never had a home or who never had an access to electricity should also pay the price because of the impact of environment. Get what I'm saying? So my actions and our transaction, our interaction, you and me, okay, is not only having an impact on you and me, that's also having impact on those people who are not also part of the activity. That's what is said to be called as an externality. The impact of one man's action on the bystander. Bystander is something who is not part of the deal. Get what I'm saying? So me producing thermal power, I benefit, you benefit, the consumers of power, but the society entire has to, the whole society also has to pay some price. How come? The damage on the environment, the pollution, isn't it? Get what I'm saying? Okay, so imagine I simply doesn't treat my pollutants and simply leave it to the ocean. Who is going to pay the price for it? All those people are going to access that particular oceanic waters. The fish in the ocean gets affected, all those people, the littoral states of all the nation gets affected, isn't it? So for my action, okay, the entire society is paying for it. Okay, and not every time one man's action on the society would be leading to a negative outcome. Sometimes it would also lead to a positive outcome. Now let's say the other scenario, case B, wherein I am imparting an education, okay, I am imparting coaching for civil services. Okay, I get money because I get paid for every minute I spend in the class. You get benefited because you are drawing some knowledge, isn't it? You benefit, I benefit. But does this benefit or does this particular interaction in this class has any positive or a negative impact on those people surrounding you? Yes or no? Do you add value to the society? Yes or no? You gaining some knowledge, is it going to have a positive impact or negative impact on the society? Positive. Huh? Positive. That's what it is. So externality is the impact or simply, okay, the impact of a person's action on a bystander. So that externality could be negative impact or a positive impact. So if it is in case B, we call it a positive externality. In case A, we call it a negative externality. Following. Now if you happen to be the one who is running the government, you should think a choice, isn't it? Who has to be incentivized? I mean, who should be given a subsidy and who should be levied more taxes? Because the one who is polluting environment has to pay the price. Has to pay the price because he is polluting the environment. And it is costing the government simply to reduce the impact of pollution, isn't it? So if I am going to really, because your actions are costing the environment, so I should discourage your actions, or I should tell you people, hey, look, reduce or alter or increase the efficiency in the way you produce power. But somehow I just want to reduce your carbon footprint. It's bad. The way you are producing power is really bad, because lot many people are getting affected. So try to figure out an alternative. Try to move from a thermal power company to a renewable energy source company. Go from thermal power company to a small hydroelectric project. Go from a thermal power company to a solar wind, energy or windmill. I would help you. Or if you insist you are going to produce the same old technology and same old amount of power, then I am going to punish you. Very high taxes. Someone got to tell them, this is bad, this is good. If you do this bad, I am going to punish you. If you do this good, I am going to incentivize you. How could I incentivize you? Subsidy de denge aapko. Isn't it? You, Mr. Srikanth, you are imparting coaching for civil services. You come to Vijayawada and simply I will be giving you land, Amaravati, and you build an institute and help my students of Andhra rather than traveling all the way from Hyderabad to attend coaching for civil services. I would allocate land, and if Mr. Jagan Reddy says something well and good, he should be incentivized because his actions have a positive externality. But Mr. Jagan Reddy calls Vijay Mallya and Sarji, why the hell you stay in London? Come to my place, produce liquor. Amaravati mein there is no enormous shortage of liquor and pour it in Krishna, isn't it? Regarding my friends, so that's bad. How could government end up simply taking a decision what is to be subsidized, what is to be incentivized, what not to be incentivized? That depends upon the externality, the consequences of your actions. How does it has an impact on the society? Isn't it? Who could better judge that? Neither the producer, nor the consumer. As a consumer of alcohol, I always want government to pay subsidy. Yes or no? Isn't it? Many of us want government to subsidize alcohol too. Isn't it? But if we end up deciding which is to be subsidized, which is not to be subsidized, that's bad. The producer should not expect what is to be subsidized, what is should not be subsidized. Who should decide it? The government. And that's the reason I said government sometimes improves outcomes. You cannot leave everything to the markets. Following? Get what I'm saying? That's the second reason which validates the seventh principle why government presence is required. First problem is markets are not efficient. The reason is because they might end up concentration of market power. The second issue is with the externalities. Following? Okay. And let's look at the third. The third reason why government presence is required. Am I going very fast? Very good. Okay, so then we are in the same frequency. The third reason is with respect to the third problem mostly is what we call a free rider problem. Free rider problem. Who is said to be a free rider? Very good, fantastic. So the one who benefits without paying for it, he is said to be a free rider. The one who enjoys the benefits without paying for it, he is said to be a free rider. That's the third reason why government presence is very much required. I just ask you a simple question. My dear friends, just imagine, okay, the day India wins match against Pakistan in World Cup, okay, just imagine, the day India wins against Pakistan, okay, I have come up with an offer. I am saying, okay, my dear friends, I am going to celebrate it by displaying a fireworks. By going for a display of fireworks worth 1 lakh rupees. 1 lakh rupees worth fireworks is what I am going to display. Okay, so this, okay, you get it, my friends, this firework display is something you could watch it, for which I would expect each of one of you to pay 1,000 rupees as a ticket to watch this firework display. Isn't it? Wherein I am going to spend some 1 lakh rupees, 1 lakh bucks upon it. Okay, I am expecting you people to purchase a ticket costing 1,000 rupees. Costing 1,000 rupees. And this 1,000 rupees you purchase, what I am saying, you can watch the firework display. Following? That's the case A. Get it, my friends? So now tell me, my friends, if I am really going to celebrate this particular occasion of India winning the match against Pakistan in a World Cup match, or India won the World Cup match, just imagine it's not against Pakistan or for that matter any other country, just if India wins a World Cup match, I mean the World Cup itself, not match, it's a World Cup itself, I am going to celebrate it. And how am I going to celebrate it? I am going to display fireworks. What, some 1 lakh or 2 lakhs in Indira, or what do you say, in NTR Stadium. So that's where I will be displaying fireworks. And you all can come and attend. but there is an entry ticket for it, 1000 rupees per person. Raise your hands, how many people would like to buy the ticket? How many people would like to buy the ticket? Why? Huh? Yeah, it's simple. It's not necessary. You can, in fact, you can also watch it from your hostel. Aram se beer PK. Listen, if you come to NTR Stadium, there is a risk attached because if I don't display it, there might be some impact. But aapka, isn't it, you can stay on your terrace, isn't it, have some beer and simply keep watching it, because when I simply display firework display, I cannot exclude you people. Okay, just because you have not paid, I can exclude you people from benefiting. Okay, isn't it? Watching my firework display, because that is something I cannot exclude you people who paid and who not paid. Because if I display, it's been in open public, every damn person could watch it. Get what I'm saying? I cannot exclude you people. So it does mean the one who paid and who doesn't pay get the same satisfaction. So people obviously think there's no point in paying it. There's no point in paying it. It's a free rider problem. That's what I will say. The one who enjoys the benefits without paying for it. So even the one who is going on the streets would also enjoy the benefits. For a Hyderabad, I mean, at least some part of Hyderabad would enjoy it without paying a single penny. But imagine the second instance is not firework display. I am going to throw a party. Isn't it? The entry ticket happens to be 1000. Unlimited food, multi-cuisine. Okay, so Mexican, American, Western, Chinese, unlimited cuisine. Varieties. Unlimited food, unlimited drinks. With disco. Sirf $1,000. Pura raat. Okay, I had a permission. Pura raat, 9 o'clock to early in the morning, 5 o'clock. Unlimited drinks, unlimited food, multi-cuisine. Okay, getting what I'm saying? So, sirf 1000 rupees. What is the reason? We are celebrating the India winning a World Cup. How many of you would like to buy the tickets? Very good. Fantastic. That's it. Isn't it? Why the rest of the people think 1000 is too costly for unlimited drinks? No, my friends. Isn't it? So that's it. So almost some people have been hesitating to raise their hands, but I know every damn person in the class would like to pay for it. Arey, what the party hai to everyone wants to pay. If it's a firework display, none of you wants to pay. Isn't it? Why is it? What makes the difference? Why is it I am not able to sell a ticket when it comes to firework display, but when it comes to a party, I am able to sell it? The reason is, if you don't buy a ticket, you will not be allowed into NTR Stadium. So I would simply expect a watchman there, and only when you have a coupon which you would be sold for $1,000, is the only person who would be allowed to enter. Isn't it? You got it, my friends? Or I am going to give you an RFID which is going to help you to determine who has paid and who has not paid. So you would only be served your drinks only when you simply display your RFID. Get what I'm saying? So that's how I can simply exclude some people having an access to my party by attaching a price. But in case of firework display, I cannot exclude people from benefiting out of my firework display. The reason is simple. It is going to be public. Following? So then in such case, who has to go for a firework display? Isn't it? Who has to go for? No one goes for firework. No private individual would go for firework display unless he is a crazy guy. Get what I'm saying? So take the case of a street light service. See, we do all spend, let's say early in the morning as soon as mother wakes up. She does spend some time in keeping the home clean. Isn't it? So very first thing she would be doing as soon as she wakes up is she would be cleaning the house. If there is no maid, she would be the one who is cleaning the house. Or we'd employ maid if mother doesn't do it. But are we doing the same thing when it comes to keeping the streets clean? Are we employing maid to keep the street clean? Is the mother doing the same job to keep the street clean? Why is it so? Don't we, does mean Indians doesn't want streets to be clean? Yes? Indians doesn't want streets to be clean? No, we all want streets to be clean. But why don't we spend time on keeping the street clean? But we end up spending keeping your room clean. Isn't it? Let's say, my friend, there is a difference between when you happen to be a single occupant in your hostel room, your room is very neat. When there are three persons, the room would be the most ugliest part on the earth. The reason is you think the other party would be doing, if I spend time keeping the room clean, the other party benefits. So you don't keep it and he doesn't keep it, and at the end of the day you live in a dustbin. All the three end up living in a dustbin. If it happens to be a single occupancy, you will be having the perfect color combinations, you would be having a pot, you would be having something, isn't it? It looks like the most best ambient atmosphere is something, you would be having it if you happen to be the single occupant. But if there are multiple occupants, your room would be much worse than a garbage. Why is it so? Because you think, if I spend time keeping the room clean, the other party benefits. The effort is private, but the benefits are social. All people benefit. If I keep the streets clean, if I keep the Visakhapatnam beach clean, the efforts are private. My time is being consumed, and that time has an opportunity cost. Well, who is going to benefit? Pura Visakhapatnam people. So I don't have an incentive, isn't it? But if I have a beach that is only meant for me, a private beach, then I have an incentive to keep it clean. And my home is my private effort. That's the basic reason I spend some time to keep my home clean. Because we people benefit and we people spend effort. Then who gonna keep the street clean? Isn't it? Someone has to do it. Isn't it? We cannot leave the streets ugly. Someone has to take care of it. Similarly, if I ask you a question, can defense of this nation, can defending this nation could be, okay, simply let's say, can I ask, Mr. Modi ask, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, you have too much of money, what is my suggestion? Is simply you employ the army personnel, you simply protect my country, and since you are rendering the service of defending my country, and whatever the money you want to get paid, you collect it from my people. You collect from people. I am not going to pay you from taxes, you collect from people. You render the service, you collect it from the people. That's one opportunity. You people. It's not only Mukesh Ambani, that's open to all of you people. The second offer is, okay, the Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad doesn't have enough money to set up street lights. So what did they ask? Is there anyone in Hyderabad who can simply set up this street light service? And you don't expect the Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad, for that matter, TRS would be, the state of Telangana would be paying. You collect the money from those people who benefit out of the street light service. You collect the money from the people who benefit out of it. But I am not going to pay it. So would you be, okay, is there anyone in the class who would like to offer a street light service as a private company? Yes? Could you? Yes? Very good. So how come, isn't it? So you simply set up a street light service, and how would you collect money from people? But I would say, I don't need your street light because I have, my particular car has a very good headlights. Isn't it? I have a neon lamps. I don't need your street light service. Then the street light would be? For me, isn't it? So how could you cannot keep street light for me alone? Isn't it? If you go with the street light, even though I pay, I don't pay, I enjoy. Let's say, imagine in my colony, we 5 people pay. We 5 people stay. In my colony, it's a row house, isn't it? We 5 people stay. And these 4 ladies ended up paying for your service. But I am the guy who said, no, I don't want your street light service. Your street light service is of low quality. Mera car lamp, mera gaadi ka lamp itself is more brighter. I don't need it. But these 4 people paid. And since these 4 people paid, you end up setting a street light service in my colony, isn't it? And in spite of not being paid, I will also enjoy the benefit. And you come and ask me, Sarji, isn't? I said, no, I really don't need it. It's up to you. I said, I don't need. You are displaying it. How does it my fault? I have my car light. And I would say, I don't just walk out of the house after 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I just come to my office. I just simply hang out with my TV. I really don't need it because I just don't understand. Even at the end, let it be dark, but I don't want to pay. Isn't it? But these 4 people paid in the colony. What is that thing you could do? So imagine you can implant a chip in my head like a smart Shankar ka, isn't it? Wherein I come under the street light goes dim because I happen to be the guy not paid. These people happen to be the guy who paid. But imagine a situation, both of us come on the street same point of time. And then you can simply switch on and switch off. The pura street becomes a discotheque. Isn't it? Getting my friends? So if you could really figure out those people who have not paid by simply implanting a chip, and you can read the information from that chip, he happens to be the one not paid, she happens to be the one who paid, and you are going to control the street lights based upon the information that you get from my microchip. But what's the situation when both the people who paid and who not paid happens to be on the street? Get what I'm saying? You cannot. Following? Similarly, is the defense of the nation. Okay, so army, Mr. Mukesh Ambani says, I am defending the country. I am employing the army people. I am paying the salaries. So he simply says, Mr. Shiva, why don't you pay? I would say, no, I don't need. I'm not afraid of Pakistani people. Let them come. Isn't it? I'm not afraid of Chinese people. Okay, I don't need your service. If some Pakistani guy comes to Hyderabad, Domalgoda, Himayatnagar, baad mein dekhenge, I can defend it. Who the hell are you to defend me? Isn't it? Same is the case with law and order. If private companies simply set up police station, I would say I don't need. I know I have a traffic sense, I know the traffic police, and I can defend myself, I can defend my family, and I don't need police, I won't pay. Isn't it? But imagine these four ladies would be saying, no, we want to pay. So agar that particular police people are simply defending my colony throughout the night, even though I don't pay, I get benefited. That's what the free rider problem is. Okay, when does a free rider problem arises is a scenario wherein you cannot exclude people. Okay, where you have no excludability. Isn't it? Where you cannot exclude people from having an access to certain goods and services, that obviously leads to free rider problem. Isn't it? So how do you define excludability? Excludability refers to a scenario wherein you can prevent people, from having an access to certain goods and services. So in the first case, remember in the very first example, when I am displaying a fireworks, I cannot exclude you people from watching it. But when it comes to a party, I am going to throw with unlimited drinks and money, okay, and food, I can exclude. How come I can exclude? By attaching a price. I said only you pay 1,000, you will be allowed into party. You will be allowed to participate in party. If you don't pay, you will not be allowed. But it's not the same case with the firework display, isn't it? So in such case where I don't have any mechanism, can you suggest a mechanism where I can exclude those people who doesn't watch this firework display? No, it's not like you cannot simply say, sir, you take a band and tie the eyes to all who are not paid. I cannot simply figure out all those people who are not paid. It would be really costing me more than that, isn't it? So that's it. I have no provision where I cannot exclude. Let's say I have spent my time keeping the entire Himayatnagar clean. Then I cannot exclude other people. Look, today I clean the street. I am the only one who has to enjoy the benefits. You please don't come on the streets. No, that's not happens. That's a public property. Who the hell am I to say? But I can say, leave your chapel and come into my house because I have kept my room clean. Get what I'm saying? And before you enter my room, leave your chapels. Isn't it? But I cannot tell you people, leave your chapels once and come to the street. The reason is simple, I clean the street today. Get what I'm saying? So that's the basic. You cannot exclude. And that's the reason you have no incentive to keeping the street clean. But someone got to do it. And who is that someone? Obviously, the Bakara, government. Get what I'm saying? So that's the reason I said government sometimes improves outcomes. So who is going to provide the street-led service? Obviously government has to. Who is going to provide the defense? Government has to. Who is going to defend the country? Okay, who is going to provide the law and order? Who is going to keep the streets clean? Who is going to go for the sewerage facility? Obviously government has to do, because private or markets are not efficient in allocating such kind of goods and services, because those goods and services leads to a problem called free rider problem. Following? So that's mean obviously the presence of government is very much necessary. You cannot leave everything in markets, and I just want to tell you people, markets are not always efficient in allocating all kinds of goods and services. Okay, there are certain category of goods and services which are non-excludable in nature, and in such case the presence of government is very much essential to deliver such kind of goods and services. Following? So but when it comes to a safety pin and marker, I don't need a government. But you produce a marker and you can attach a price and you can exclude those people. So markets are good at it. But when it comes to defense of the country, law and order of the country, sewerage facilities, isn't it? So no private party has an incentive to render that such provision of such services. Obviously government is to be there, okay, to deliver. That's the basis in so-called most advanced capitalistic country in United States of America. Even the government of United States of America do play some proactive role in delivering goods and services. Who builds roads in USA? Government. Who controls the police? Government. Who controls the defense? Government. In USA, isn't just because it's the most advanced capitalistic country, it's not the defense of the nation is being privatized. Who does it? In government. In North Korea, most socialistic country, barbaric country, North Korea, government does it. In India, government does it. Because that is something you cannot leave it to the markets, because markets are not efficient in delivering goods and services. Following? Okay, and that's the other reason why the government presence is very much necessary. Following? Okay, so now taking this into, and one was, okay, other thing, okay, when I discussed about excludability, let me also discuss about something called a future, called rivalry in consumption. A good is said to be rival in consumption. A good is said to be rival in consumption. Rivalry in consumption. A good is said to be rival in consumption. If one person's consumption or if one consumption, okay, one person's consumption of good or service would diminish or reduce the opportunity. Diminish does mean would reduces the opportunity of consuming the same good by any other person. Okay, so note down the definition. I will give an example. A good is said to be rival in consumption. If one person's consumption of good would diminish, the other person's ability to consume the same good, not similar good, same good. Does mean, let's say this marker. If I end up go to market and buy this marker, does mean there is no longer the same marker available. Maybe similar marker could be available. There is a difference between the same marker and similar marker. Maybe Camlin marker, an extra marker could be there in the market, but this marker which I purchased is no longer available in the market for someone else to purchase. Get what I'm saying? One consumed, there ends the matter. So let's say as of now in the entire market of Hyderabad, there are 1,000 ice creams. 1,000 ice creams available today. So if these 10 ladies ends up buying these 10 ice creams, the market now would only be left with 990 ice creams. So that ice cream you purchase is no longer available for any other person to purchase. That's good is a rival in consumption. So I'm not saying the similar good is not available. Same is not available. Isn't it? So that particular mobile phone you have with you is something you purchase and it's your private good. The same mobile phone is no longer available. Similar mobile phone is available, but the same mobile phone is no longer available. Such goods are said to be rival in consumption. So then you can ask me, would there also be a good which is non-rival in consumption, wherein one person consumption doesn't diminish other person's consumption? Yes, absolutely. Let's say imagine I am at the beach. And enjoying the scenic beauty. And let's say one person also gets added to the beach. Does it diminish my particular satisfaction levels just because there are two persons? Let's say I am watching movie Bahubali. I am alone watching the Bahubali 2. And let there be a second person who entered into the movie theater. Can I complain? Look at the satisfaction I enjoy is something being decreased because of a second person. Can you complain it? No. Isn't it? It's not like when I am the alone person watching the movie, the Prabhas and the stars are coming out of silver screen and dancing before me, and there are two people that are going back of silver screen. No, वो तो same movie है, same director है, सब कुछ same है. Isn't it? But if I go and I'm buying this marker, the same marker is no longer available. Okay, same is a class with this, isn't it? So you cannot complain just because there are 150 students. I am not simply getting more because the knowledge is being distributed divided by 150. No, whether one or two people is the same guy, same lecture, same economy. Get what I'm saying? So this particular knowledge that you derive is irrespective of the number of students sit in the class. Unless the class is not so full, that is really going to leading to some basic problem, isn't it? This class has a capacity of 200. Until the class is not full, this particular service I am delivering here is non-rival in nature. You can only complain only when in a class of 200 I accommodate 400. Because the other party is sitting in your lap or simply sitting on your table, and that's the reason you are not comfortable, then you can complain. But whatever it is, economy lecture same here. You cannot simply say, sir, your lecture is being divided by 150 because we are there 150 in the class. If I alone would be there, all knowledge is something I would have accumulated. No, that's not the case. Isn't this? Getting my friends? So that's what it is. So this classroom is a non-rival in consumption until the class is not full. But is this class excludable? Is this excludable? Is the service we rendering here in this case, is it excludable? Yes or no? Yes, it's absolutely. How come it's excludable? How is it excludable? We attach the price, 1.5 lakh. All those people who can pay 1.5 lakh are the only people who will be allowed to sit in my class. That's it. The rest who cannot afford to pay, so that's mean here in this class, there is no free rider problem. Again, if I am lecturing, deliver the same lecture, standing in that Ashok Nagar signal with a mic, isn't it? And simply saying, "Eto demand, eto supply," isn't? Then it is a free rider problem. Isn't? That's the basic reason you might have seen. The people who perform the street circus would be performing a magnificent feat. It's really a very high talented. You might have seen the kid walking at the height of 12 feet on a single rope, making very good feat, but they always remain poor. The reason is simple. Everyone watches, everyone enjoys, everyone claps, but no one pays. But if the same circus has been offered in a closed tent with a ticket attached, the closed circus, there are some companies in circus companies which are billion-dollar companies. So if it is being offered in a closed tent, isn't it? You get it, my friends? You make money. That doesn't mean you can exclude people. So if, okay, a circus in a closed tent is something better for a private party to make money. If you offer a circus in the open, that's going to be a free rider problem. Everyone will be clapping. Everyone will be appreciating the performance of the particular kid. But no one would be paying. Isn't it? And that's the reason they rewind and they lurch in poverty. Following the reason what the choice they have opted is exhibiting their skill and talent in open, in public is the basic problem they have done. That's mistake. If they would have come up with a tent and say this is where you can watch a beautiful circus for 10 minutes, then people would have paid, isn't it? And there would have been entry ticket. Getting what I'm saying? And that's how we can exclude people who are not watching by dancing a price. But no matter what you do, certain goods and services cannot be excluded. Isn't it? People want to go to beach people want to go to beach or people want to go to ocean, okay, so the sea for fishing, catching fish. You cannot exclude them. Isn't it? You cannot exclude them. Isn't it? Similarly, the street light service, the sewerage facilities. You cannot say, okay, since I have not paid any money, you would cleaning the street, isn't it, canal up to my home and leaving my home, you would be again cleaning it. If you simply, there is a blockade at my home, there is no point in cleaning this side and the other side. Isn't it? You obviously has to clean whether I have paid or not paid. That's it. That's a free rider problem. So in such case, government alone has to do it. You have no alternative. Following what I'm saying? So that's the basic problem with the market. So I mean to say, though I ended up saying markets are better places to organize any economic activity, but there are certain exceptional cases wherein markets are not good at delivering those goods and services. Henceforth, the very much presence of government is necessary, and that's what the seventh principle says. Government sometimes improves outcomes. Okay, so now let's try to understand, okay, when I say government sometimes improves outcomes, in what category of goods and services the government is really required and how does it really make sense? So now my friends, okay, all the goods and services that are being traded is what I divide into four categories. So on the row wise, I take the factor of excludability. Okay, row wise, I take the case of excludability. So when I say, if it is excludable, I say yes. If it is non-excludable, no. So all those things that comes within the first row, they are excludable. And all that comes in the second row, they are non-excludable. Following? And I am simply saying, okay, so on column wise, I am simply naming the rivalry in consumption. Goods which are rival in consumption, if yes, they appear in the first column. If no, they appear in the second column. So it has mean this matrix, but this cell corresponds to non-excludable and a non-rival good. Following? And this cell in this matrix corresponds to an excludable good, a non-excludable good and a rivalry in good which is rival in a consumption. Understood? Following? Any doubt, friends? Yes? Okay. So based upon excludability and rivalry in consumption, let me categorize the goods and services in four different categories. Then you can tell me which category is that government is good at and which is not, okay, government could be good at. Following? A good which is said to be rival in consumption and also an excludable is generally known as a private good, where you can exclude people from having an access to it, where you can prohibit people from having an access to that good or service. And the good is also said to be rival in consumption. It doesn't mean one person's consumption would diminish the other person's ability to consume the same good. They are said to be called as a private goods. Give me an example of a private good. Your mobile phone, your shirt, your spectacles, your watch, okay, sab kuch aapka paas is a private good, isn't it? I can have a cap, something similar to it, but I cannot have the same cap now. Get you what I'm saying? Getting once you end up purchasing it, that leads to shortfall of a cap in the market, isn't it? And it's excludable because there's a cap, there's a price attached to that cap. It's not something that I can pluck it from a tree, isn't it? It's excludable because there's a price attached. So everything you have with you is a private good. Following? Goods which are non-excludable and non-rival in consumption, they are said to be called as a public goods. So give me an example of a public good. The street light service. You know? The street light service is a public good, isn't it? It doesn't matter. See, it's not like when I am alone traveling on the street lights are brighter. When there are 10 cars on the street lights goes, I mean the average amount of sunlight a street light service I receive is going to decrease. That's not how. It's the same street light of the same watt, isn't it? Same bulb of the same 100 watts, isn't it? You cannot complain because there are 10 cars, the service I get delivered is going to be less, isn't it? One car, two cars, the same is the service. It's not rival, isn't it? Same is the case with the defense of the country. 120 crore people, 130 crore people, 140 crore people, same is the different services, isn't it? Law and order, more or less, getting what I'm saying? So they are the public goods and services. Following? Okay, so that's what it's. A good which is not rival in consumption, non-excludable is a public good. Clear? And a good which is excludable, you can exclude them, but not rival in consumption. They are said to be called as club goods. Club good. Okay, so what is an example of a club good? This institution itself. Okay, this is a club good. The service I deliver is an excludable because I attach a price, but it is not rival because the service I deliver is irrespective of the people who are in the class. Okay, until the class is not full, okay, it doesn't matter whether it's one or this is a class having a capacity of 200. So up to 200, the service I deliver here is non-rival in consumption, but it's excludable. I can attach a price. A movie theater, for that matter, the theater capacity happens to 350. Until the theater is not full, it's not rival in consumption. But I can exclude people. Isn't how come by attaching a price? The movie theater. Similarly, you might have come across Nizam Club, then Hyderabad Boat Club. Isn't it? Not every person has a free entry. The entry to those clubs has been restricted to only few elite people who have paid an entry fee to it. That's it. Who happens to be a member of the club. It's not open to all people. You cannot randomly walk into Nizam Club. That's it. Okay, you need a prior membership or you need to be recommended by any membership or you have to be accompanied by an existing member. You cannot simply walk into it. Get it, my friends? But when you go into Nizam Club, it's not that you alone would be enjoying it. Whether it's 1 or 10 people, okay, same is the kind of service you would be rendered. Get what I'm saying? That's a club good. Following. Goods which are non-excludable but rival in consumption, they are said to be called as common resources. Common resources. Give me an example. Fish in the ocean. The fish in the ocean. Isn't it? So you cannot exclude any people from going for a fishing into the ocean. While I catch some fish, that means the same fish no longer available for someone to catch it. Get what I'm saying? Okay, that's a common resource. Following. So you might have heard about a very popular thing, something called tragedy of commons. Tragedy of commons. What is this tragedy of commons refer to? It refers to something, a situation that arises out of utilization of common resources. Out of utilization of common resources. What we call tragedy of commons. Let's say, okay, we all belong to a village. We all belong to a village. And in this village, there is a common resource. I mean, the resource that is owned by all people, collectively owned. I mean, that doesn't belong to any person. That's a property owned by the village people, the entire village. It's a public land. So this village, the land that's available in this village happens to be very green pasture land. Green pasture land, let's say of 4 acres. 4 acres ka green pasture land in the middle of the village is something available, and that is something accessible to all people because that's not a privately owned property. That's owned by the entire village community. So once you have 4 acres of pasture land, green pasture land, let's say this lady got an idea, why not me buy some sheep and rear the sheep, because this is a common resource. See, if I buy the sheep and rear the sheep, and I am going to simply make money by selling this sheep. Get what I'm saying? So now imagine this lady thought, let me go and make money because this is a green pasture land already available. I don't need to invest for it. I don't need to buy some pasture for it. So there is already a pasture, lush green pasture land available. So let me make money by simply rearing my cattle there. So imagine she ended up by chasing some head of cattle and she is rearing that particular cattle and she is making money. Looking at what the way she is making money, imagine this lady also has ended up doing the same thing. Isn't it? But this lady and this lady do the same thing. They are interested in simply rearing their cattle in the pasture land, but none of them has any incentive to recuperate the soil fertility. The reason is simple. She would be thinking, if I spend some time in recuperating the soil fertility, in maintaining soil fertility, if I am managing the soil better, Not only me benefiting, she also benefits. And looking these two people also join the bandwagon. So now every villager turned to become a head, the one who is simply rearing the cattle. So everyone is interested in rearing the cattle using the same pasture land, but none of them is interested in simply protecting the fertility of the soil. So what is going to happen? All the people at the end of the day would be left with an uncultivable land, because everyone is simply good at exploiting it, but not simply protecting the fertility. So that's the basic reason. Okay, friends, the reason why we end up with badly maintained hostel rooms, simple, tragedy of commons. If I keep it clean, the other party benefits. So why should I? Let me spend that same time on reading history. Your friend also thinks the same thing. Many a times you might have typical, if you are staying in a room, other than PC, what do you think you would be doing? You think, generally you would be making a timetable. Today I am going to cook the rice, you get the curries. But again, if you have any such kind of plan and you live in a room, many times you might have come across this. You would be reading your book. You would think the other guy would be simply placing rice in the cooker, and he would think, why me, why not the other guy? So that's the basic time somewhere all the people in the class, that particular room, so has to go hungry after 3 or 4 o'clock, and at 3 or 4 o'clock someone who is really hungry, who cannot sustain hunger, would simply walk forward. But until 3 or 4 o'clock everyone has to suffer, because no one has an incentive to take the step ahead. That's the basic reason. If you live in a room, you make a timetable. Monday to Friday you do it, or Monday to lunch time you bring it, and evening time I do it. In case of no timetable, what is going to happen? Both the people happen to go to bed hungry. Get what I'm saying? The reason why we keep the streets dirty, simple, none of us has an incentive. So there has to be some. So that's what is a tragedy of commons. That's what's a common resources. Following. So now my friends, name anything, any good or service that would be part of any of this. Your pen is a private good. The defense of the nation is a public good. This class is a common resource. So name anything that could be part of any of these things. Isn't it? Following. Now the question is, you tell me, which part or which category of goods and services is the market is good in delivering those services and goods? And which category of goods and services is the government good at delivering those goods? Private goods? Market should be. What does it mean? Private goods and public goods. Should the market be or government should be? Private good. Who is good at delivering them? Who is good at it? That's my question. Market is good at. Isn't it? There is no business for government to produce safety pin and, isn't it? Something what the market cannot do is what the government should do. If government, which is operating with no profit, no loss principle, is competing with a private guy, government never reports a profit. That's what is this. Who is efficient, who is good at producing and properly delivering goods and services when it comes to private, markets are good at. When public goods, government. Then club goods, club goods, market. Common resources, isn't it? So you can simply categorize goods which are non-excludable. Which are non-excludable. Government would be better delivering those goods and services. Goods which could be excluded, where you can attach a price. Markets would be efficient in allocating those goods and services. Delivering those goods and so simple. Excludability. Following what I'm saying? So this is how you can say what should the government do, what should not the government do. Now let me ask you a question in a different way. Let me ask you the question simple. Should education be, the education be offered better by market or better by government? Who should be good at delivering education service, provisioning the service of education? Who would be good at and who should be good at? Government. Do all of you believe that education is something what government has to deliver? Yes or no? Or you think private markets are good at? Who should ideally who should simply impart education? Government or markets? Why government? Why government? Why government? Because education is something necessity for the modern world. In the modern world, education is a very much necessity. See, if you look at the very common problem that we Indians has, see, we have been the epitome of knowledge in good old days. So we have contributed zero, algebra. You might have heard about the famous works of Bhaskaracharya in the name of Leelavati. Never heard about this? Is said to be one of the foremost work on algebra. Leelavati. So our contribution to science and technology happens to be enormous. But why not too many people in India doesn't have a scientific temper? It's simple. In good old days, the access to education is only been restricted only to the elite part of society based upon caste basis. Only Kshatriya and the Brahman community are the only one who has a right to get an admission in ashram, and those are the people who have been given the confined right to interpret Vedas, and these people started interpreting Vedas in comfort to those people, keeping large part of the society in dark. And as a result, though India happens to be an epitome of knowledge, knowledge has been not evenly shared among all people. So what happened? Very few people happen to be the elite part of society who are highly educated, large part of society who really doesn't understand what is what of an education. So as a result, this particular country happens to be the repository of knowledge, has not benefited people equally. Large many people remain educated, having no enough access to education. That has led to the loss of glory of this country in the current situation, isn't it? And are we not doing the same thing by simply leaving the education to the markets? Now who can afford to have a better access to markets? I mean, who can afford to have a better education? Those who can simply send their kids to those so-called international schools, isn't it? So now look at typically in the states of Andhra and Telangana, education has been completely left to. Look at it. See, if you happen to be the guys, none of you, tomorrow if you happen to be the parents, none of you want to send your kids to a primary school. But all of you want to send your kids to an IIT owned by Government of India, isn't it? When it's a primary education, you don't want to be a primary school, government school. When it's a higher education, AIMS, if you want to be a medical student, is it good at a private college or an AIMS? You want to be in AIMS. If in engineering, you want to be in a private CBIT or IIT, IIT, isn't it? Again, it's a higher education, you want to be enrolled in a government college. If it is a primary education, you don't want it because you know, you're clear of the fact that that's where the service being. It does mean if government really intends to provide a better service, it can provide. The proof is higher education, the government is doing well, but when it comes to primary education, government has left it to markets. Isn't that's the basic reason? Pura South India, we have China products, Chaitanya, Narayana. Isn't it? So that's bad. Isn't it? So ideally education has to be something non-excludable, but the government unfortunately happened to make it a club good. Isn't it? So as a result of making public good, club good, what is going to happen? Only those people who can afford to buy education. Not who can afford to have an access, who can afford to buy an education or having an access to better education. So the higher education is offered by government, but the primary education is being where the market has captured it. So who can afford to have the access better primary education and secondary education? Those people who can afford to pay better. And these people are the one who compete for that free education in the government sector. Then who is going to benefit at the cost of the government and taxpayers? The one who can better purchase free education, better education at primary school. So who is benefiting? The rich or the poor? So ideally who has to deliver the better education? Government. That's the basic reason. One of the basic criticism of socialism practice in India, the government of India started doing everything in which it is not good at, and left everything in which only the government good at to markets. So ideally education has to be a public good, but government has made it be a club good. Health has to be public good, but government has left it to Apollo people. Isn't it? So ideally it has to be, but it's been left to this thing. So that's how you can simply make a comment. Tomorrow you've been asked a question, that's how you can substantiate your opinion by simply saying this is what the logic hands to good, why government presence is very much necessary. Get what I'm saying? So it doesn't mean government is not spending money in a primary education. You would be surprised to know 1100 rupees per kid per month is what the government of India today spends in offering primary school education. But 1100 rupees worth education is what the service being rendered? No. Is the service really worth 1100? No. Large many schools does have teachers, no students. Teachers, students, school building nahi hai. Isn't it? Get it, my friend? That's the scenario. So henceforth, who is so does education should be a club good or a public good? It should be public good. Wherein the excludability should not come into picture. Because these days you can surprise, it's a surprising element, my friends. 2 lakh, 3 lakh rupees for LKG and UKG. 2 lakh is what the amount I have paid to moving from a KG to PG. Isn't it? Nowadays, that's the basic reason people are scared to have kids. The reason is Imparting education has become a luxury. The education is a necessity, but in the modern world it has become a luxury. Are 2 lakh you pay or simply 2000 you pay, wo to ABC pada hai na, isn't it? A for apple, B for ball. They don't teach rocket science just because they take 2 lakh rupees, isn't it? The same old ABC. Get what I'm saying? But that's the reason. The very common criticism in the government is something ideally has to be public good, made a club good. Okay, something which is a private good, the government started making it, trying to make it a public good. This is the surprising element. Government of India in good old days, prior to 1990s, even now the government is into some stupid business. Okay, have you been to Ooty, Udagamandalam? So if you enter into Ooty from the side of Mysore, very beginning of the this city town, Ooty, you find a company called Hindustan Photo Films. Hindustan Photo Films Limited. The photo film dustbin, in good old days you might have seen that Kodak photo film, isn't it? So the government of India is still running a factory which produces a photo film. Do you really think government has to be in the business of producing photo film, safety pin, lipstick, isn't it? Bread, butter. There used to be a company called, the company is still present but no longer is owned by government. The company named as Modern. There is a government owned company called Modern Bread Company. A company which used to manufacture bread. It's a government owned company, but it's been privatized. But still with the name of Modern. Have you never ever come across a bread by name Modern? You would be government. That's previously owned by government. Do you really think government, a government which is in the business of governing 130 crore people, has to be in the business of producing bread, butter, jam? No, that's what the markets are good at. You should leave it to it. So you have poked into all business in which you are not good at and left all those things to the markets in which you could only be good at. And that's the basic reason we are said to be a mixed. Generally when we mix something, we mix the good and good of something and good of something. But here in India, we mix the bad of capitalism, the bad of socialism. The worst of socialism, the worst of capitalism. And we call this a mixed economy. And that's the reason that mixed economy happens to be largely a failure in 1990s. You get it, my friends? That's the basic situation. So that's how, this is how I could validate saying, government sometimes improves outcomes. So this proves why the presence of government is very much necessary. Because there are certain parts of the world, certain economies who end up simply saying, let the economy be completely left to markets. And those are the people who believe in a free market economy wherein everything could be delivered by the markets itself. And they are said to believe in an economy called laissez-faire economy. Laissez-faire economy simply does mean without any government intervention or minimal intervention of government. Laissez-faire in Latin simply does mean let do, let go, let pass. Leave everything to the markets. Markets are good at delivering all goods and services. But ideally, practically, markets could not be good at delivering all kinds of goods and services. Government's presence is very much essential. And how come? This is the proof for it. Following, we need governments. And that's the basic reason, later point of time, we are going to understand and discuss and debate about public finance. Because government presence in markets is also very much essential. Get what I'm saying? So that's the basic